What's up guys, Everything Apple Pro here. Welcome to iOS 15, the movie, where I try to find every possible feature Apple added in this new firmware, and yet still so many left unexplored. 500 plus features. A video like this was not easy to make. We definitely appreciate your support over at Phone Rebel, where all the proceeds of this video are going to develop our upcoming Gen 3 cases and our next open case, the Flex series. Hope you guys enjoy. This might take a while. The first thing you'll notice after updating is this nice custom handwritten welcome screen with this very nice blur in the background, definitely much better than the iOS 14 one. Device support alone is worth a mention. Apple continues supporting all devices that support iOS 14, including the 6S and SE original. And better yet, if you'd like to stay on iOS 14, Apple has made a commitment to continue supporting iOS 14 with security updates regardless of whether or not you update. Now, some iOS 15 features are limited by hardware, starting at the XS and some limited to the 12 lineup. From the lock screen, while locked, you can swipe down into Spotlight where before you couldn't. Cool detail, but on iOS 14, when you have the beta preloaded, you'll actually get the 15 icon in the top left there. Another nice touch is the way the notifications blur into the top bar instead of having a sharp cutoff. Now when the AirPlay menu is activated, you can see some of the UI elements behind, not completely blurred. Apple has lowered the status bar icons, such as time and the control center icons, by a few pixels. And this is the new default home screen app orientation. So 2 Smart Stack widgets up top, and new app ordering on both pages. And now when downloading apps and you have space on your first home screen, iOS will populate the first one before starting a new one. And now just by holding on the navigation dots, you can enter wiggle mode. And by clicking on those, you get a slightly modified page here. You can quickly reorganize pages where you couldn't before. You can drop them wherever you'd like. Also from here, an easy way to delete an entire row of apps is just to click remove, and they'll be deleted from your home screen. And they've modified the animations when you leave this app page view. As you can see, it happens faster. And check out how much smoother moving between the page dots are on iOS 15. It's very silky. On iOS 14, it's jagged. And now, unlike iOS 14, you can have multiple apps of the same app on any page, as many as you'd like. As far as the user interface, you'll find this compact look for options all throughout iOS. You'll see that the navigation bar up top now blends with the background, so there's no longer a divide unless you slide beneath it. And just to list all the new navigation bar icons on the bottom, that would be 100 plus features on its own. Here's an example of what you'll find throughout iOS, simply too many to list. Another big icon change is the icon set Apple uses for their products. They're much bolder, a little bit smaller, and you'll be seeing these all throughout iOS. Now, of course, you get a new default wallpaper with iOS 15, but why? Why did they have to remove the cool iOS 13 ones? Now, drag and drop is available system-wide. Just to give you an example, you can actually in Safari drag multiple objects, drop them all here, and this is available in most apps throughout iOS 15. Now, when dragging and dropping, you can select multiple files and multiple file types. You get that nice counter. You can drag them into any accessible text field. You can also drag and drop from within Siri results. So either the initial link or details from inside. And the screenshot interface can be held for drag and drop it wherever you'd like. Now on iOS 15, the magnifier app is a default app on your home screen. Previously, it could have been added through accessibility. There's now a new option in magnifier for cameras. So with this button, you can swap to your front-facing camera for the first time. Apple only made a couple icon changes, one of them being the camera. So now it's bolder without the shutter button visible. A new interface for QR codes. Now this little badge, and it'll hang and show you the respective location, and it'll actually take you to the app where that QR code belongs to, instead of a web link. Also for saved QR codes, you can analyze them with live text and get these options. And the live text UI in the camera app is simply awesome. It brings up this pop-up, which you can then interact with. In the camera settings, you have the option to disable live text from within camera. Also in the camera app, you can now hold the shutter button to record and swipe up to zoom at the same time, where previously it would just stop the recording. And also for the front-facing camera, you can activate that zoom out mode while live recording without it deactivating. Also, preserve settings now has 2 new options for portrait zoom and night mode. Now the panorama mode on iOS 15 has improved geometric distortion and captures better moving subjects. And the text cursor magnifier returns. Thank you, Apple. Another welcome UI change is the reintroduction of the picker wheel. So that is now back instead of being hidden away. Definitely more user-friendly. In the app switcher, you'll notice the app icons on the top left disappear, fade out as soon as you swipe up, and then reappear. And there's a modified interface with a larger icon letting you know there's liquid in your lightning port. Before your iPhone fully overheats, there's now a smaller prompt that can be dismissed away. In your status bar, there's a new default location being used icon, now highlighted in blue. Now, if you don't allow an app to use your precise location, on the right, iOS 14 would zoom out a little bit more. Now it's more zoomed in. In the app drawer, there's new organization, and productivity and finance are now two separate categories if you have enough apps. Within the app drawer, apps which have been offloaded can now be deleted instead of having the just share app option. Spotlight search has been completely revamped. Now it's much smarter, can feature smart results for people, movies, events. It can also read all the live text from your photos and give you relevant results. Also within Spotlight, a much better interface when looking up contacts, showing you all the relevant information, not just their contact info. And when launching Spotlight for the first time, you'll see all these new icons here. Now apps can be dragged from Spotlight to your home screen. Apps can also directly be deleted from within Spotlight. Not only that, but apps can actually be downloaded directly from within Spotlight search results. In Spotlight search, there's a new interface for photos from apps. There's a little custom tag with photos. When you open up the viewer, you can see that it has a custom image to visit the app or share quickly. In Spotlight search, if a receipt shows up from the Wallet app, it now has a quick navigate button to the location the purchase was made. A new security feature is that your iPhone remains trackable even when the battery dies. You get this alert around 10% battery life, and then when powering your iPhone off, you can see location visible after power off text on the bottom. And of course, the notification center redesign. A lot more compact, you can fit a lot more on one page, icons for contacts, and everything is sorted by priority by AI. And this is a notification summary where overnight or at the end of the night, you can set certain times where all of your notifications will collect and present you with this nice interface. Actually get a number top right, how many you have to look through. And there is a new splash screen detailing this new notification summary feature. And here are the actual scheduled summary settings where you can choose to deliver however many times a day you want, what time, which apps you want in those summaries. In any app's notification center, there's a new section for notification delivery where you can schedule the delivery or have it immediate. And I got this new option for notifications which just won't stop, and it'll give you an option to mute for 1 hour or mute for today. And there's new behavior for these notification cards. Swipe right to open the widget view instead of this redundant open button. Swipe left and there's no longer a view button. Again, redundant, manages now options, and the interface is new. Within this interface, you now have the option to go directly into the app and configure there the settings for the notifications instead of just going into the notification settings. Now, some options on iOS 15 simply cannot be swiped away where they could on iOS 14. Now, some notification cards can't even be previewed using haptic touch like before. And when dragging down on notifications, they have new interfaces for the responses. They're stacked neater now. And when you click outside of them, there's new animations for them disappearing. They don't travel all the way down anymore. And notification previews where scrolling is allowed now have permanent icons on the bottom. And the quick reply interface is certainly different for messages. You can scroll a little cleaner, doesn't go beneath the keyboard like that. And to dismiss, you just click down below, and here you can't, you have to click the X. Now the screenshot interface now has markup by default on the top here, and it also has live text in the button right here, so you can quickly scan the contents of the entire page. In the control center, Shazam has a new haptic touch platter where it shows you your recording history. And in the hearing settings toggle, there are new buttons down here for live listen and background sounds. Background sounds, there's a number to choose from here. They'll gently play and you can adjust the volume. And in sound recognition, a few new ones: glass breaking, kettle, shouting, and coughing. When using the mic on your iPhone, the indicator is now orange on the top left instead of red. And in the text size options platter, there's a new option here for all apps where you can individually customize text size per app. And of course, a big one is focus mode. So focus mode allows you to have a contextual way to let people know you're busy. And there are many different categories here. If you enable one, it will show not only in your notification centers, gaming, that one shows up there, and in here in the control center as well. And when using focus for the first time, in the platter, there's a new splash screen which details creating a custom focus. And within the focus settings, when allowing certain people or apps through, the interface here is quite nice. And this status will show in messages. You can get an option to push through if you decide to bother them, and that notification will show up as a time-sensitive badge notification with this yellow. And time-sensitive notifications have this new splash screen letting you know what's new. There's also the icon for the relevant focus you're using on your lock screen at all times. When you enable this for the first time, let's say we're doing sleep, you'll get this drop-down little banner here where you can quickly cancel. And now in the sleep mode settings, you can actually disable with the sleep screen option that annoying sleep screen which you have to dismiss. And Apple has renamed turn on automatically to turn on at bedtime. Pretty much does the same thing, but doesn't enable the sleep screen by default. Now, there's no longer a do not disturb button here. It's replaced with screen mirroring. And speaking of screen mirroring, I was surprised how quickly it works. Just like that on my MacBook, with this very cool new icon. Also, as a result of focus mode, you no longer have dedicated buttons for sleep mode and do not disturb while driving. Now, just by connecting a controller to your iPhone, you can trigger gaming focus mode, and that's thanks to smart activations. Smart activations can turn on at relevant times throughout the day based on signals like your location, app usage, and more. Another cool thing about focus is that you can customize home screens, and depending on which focus mode, you would obviously want to see different things. Also options such as hide notification badges. Maybe if you're going to sleep, you don't want to see those. Another great customization is the ability to change the days and hours and circumstances, location, even apps to activate at certain times. I also got this half-baked animation for driving. I'm sure it's for do not disturb while driving, and it turns on automatically. Now, iPad users can control their entire home screen using a controller, not so on the iPhone, but I found support in the Spotlight search. Triggering the joystick opens that search. The controller will also open random stuff on different pages for no reason whatsoever. And when in a game, hold the share button on your controller to begin recording the screen. This records a 15-second burst. And there is now a default controller overlay API for developers. So throughout many apps, you can activate it and it'll have the same consistent controller. Another shortcut using that controller is a double tap to take a screenshot. And while screen recording using the controller in games, this is the new section that appears in Notification Center while in gaming. And in the Control Center, the Apple TV remote interface here is all new. It's definitely more reminiscent of the actual Apple TV 4K remote. And when first launching the remote, you'll get this little mini pop-up letting you know that you can use the side button as a Siri button, just like on the Apple TV remote. Now, for some songs, you'll notice Spatialize Stereo, basically a fake version of Spatialize Audio. It's mimicking it. Cool thing is it's not limited to just Apple Music. You can find it in Spotify and other sources. And also in the Control Center, you'll notice the source icon from where you're playing music right below the volume slider. In Settings, iCloud, you'll notice a few new things here. First off, Apple talked about privacy features like Private Relay, which will take your IP address, bounce it around, hide it. And there's Hide My Email, which will scramble your email for different apps. Also, the ordering here has changed, so iCloud Backup, Keychain are now present here on top. And of course, the iCloud Plus feature, which Apple by default allows you to have. It upgrades your existing plan for no extra charge, with these new security features in mind. And Mail, for some reason, is now called iCloud Mail. And in Mail notification settings, take care to make sure customized notifications, this is a new option, is enabled. The alerts option, as mine by default was off. And in iCloud backup settings, you now have the option to back up over cellular. And in the battery interface, there's a new change where when charging, there's a green bar with a little lightning bolt showing those times. And in the reset settings, there's a new option to prepare for new iPhone. Click on that, you'll get this splash screen detailing how to migrate to a new iPhone. When you click done in the settings, you'll notice this prompt here where it begins backing up your data. And Apple is even nice enough to loan you some storage so you can upload all of your data temporarily, 3 weeks. There's this splash screen explaining that, so you can migrate within 3 weeks. And then when you're ready to wipe the phone, there's this new screen tells you what needs to be taken care of, details on those. I also noticed that it only takes 1 click now to erase iPhone instead of 2. It did that as a redundancy before. And in the same vein, Apple is making it easier than ever for Android users to move over to iPhone with an updated Move to iOS app that includes even more data. And with iOS 15, AirPods are getting a huge boost. First off, conversation mode, which makes your AirPods an even better hearing aid to boost voices. And of course, there's voice isolation, where Apple applies their algorithms and reduces all outside noise. A few changes I noticed when setting up new AirPods or AirPods Max. No longer will you get this temporarily share audio message if the AirPods aren't yours. On iOS 15, it just asks you to set up. And during the setup, you will not get a screen for spatial audio, testing it out, or announce messages. There is a new screen though for announce calls and notifications, as Apple has unified announce messages into this notification setting, and you can choose any app to announce notifications from. There's also a new option to announce when connected to CarPlay or headphones. And now AirPods are also part of the Find My network using the Bluetooth beacon. So not an ultra wideband chip, but still will get passed along. Find My app has this new splash screen when opening up for the first time, and you can actually play sounds for AirPods even though they're in the case. And Apple will make finding lost AirPods easier, as they'll be adding the same interface from AirTags. In the spatial audio settings, no longer do you have the option to turn on for supported videos, it's just on by default. And now in the Bluetooth settings for AirPod devices, you can see the AppleCare coverage, and you can see mine is expired, but that setting is new. And in AirPods accessibility settings, there's a new bar on the bottom for tone volume, so you can adjust the alerts coming out of your AirPods. When you delete Bluetooth devices on iOS 15, they automatically show up in a list temporarily in other devices below. Now when using personal hotspot, the banner is now green instead of blue. Now in settings, VPN and device management replaces VPN and profile into one clean area. Inside there are new icons, and there's a new sign in to work or school account feature with a custom splash screen. Now in settings, Siri has a new icon. It's very faint, but the difference certainly is there. And Siri is smarter when it comes to HomeKit. She can set specific times to turn something on or off. A really cool one is that Apple is expanding the Apple Watch unlock feature. So if you have an Apple Watch on your wrist and your phone is locked, you can now make Siri personal requests, such as read my messages. On your Apple Watch, you'll see that screen there, and Siri will begin to read while locked. Siri is much better at maintaining context between questions, so one can lead to the next, such as, is something open, and how long will it take to get there? Siri can now be used offline. Open settings and make simple commands such as starting timers, clock, and Apple is going further in privacy. So that Siri offline feature, it's all done locally on your device. Apple's also made a new tab in privacy for recording app activity, and it's a 7-day summary of all of your apps, their usage, and where they're sending it. On the lock screen, in the widgets view, Apple is making it possible for developers to hide sensitive information in widgets while locked. And in privacy, there's a new category for nearby interactions to keep track of when you encounter another ultra-wideband device or Bluetooth beacon. And Apple has a new digital legacy program which allows you to sign up to share your data in case you pass with your family, with an authorized person. And along that vein, they also authorize other people to help recover your account, never to get access to it, but in case you forget, they can help. Print Center has been completely revamped, now with a new UI, option to change orientation, the sizing, and the quality, and new previews here. Within the previews, you have an option to search here throughout all the pages, just all around better. Messages are getting a ground up revamp. So first off, they're integrated with Shared With You. Shared With You is a feature where if someone sends you a certain type of link, you'll see a context for it in another app, in Spotlight. It's all integrated throughout iOS 15. Now, one of my favorite features is the new image picker. So when sending a bunch of images, you don't send a wall of text or images, which you can then expand into a multi-view. Even when you share just 2 photos in Messages, there's a new interface, one you can't cycle through, but takes up less space. Images sent to you have a quick download button to the right of them. Now enter the photo picker. There's a convenient search bar up top. The interface all around is way better now. So first off, you can scroll infinitely here instead of having to scroll horizontally in this minimal interface. You can haptic touch within this little preview without having to open the image. And selecting multiple images now will give you a number instead of a check mark. And you now have an option to translate directly from within any text really throughout iOS, but in Messages in particular. In Messages, voice memos can now be scrubbed through by haptic touching where they couldn't before. And there's a new pinning system in Messages where if you pin something, you can save it for later in the respective app. It'll show up here in Shared with You and quickly get back to it. Some great quality of life improvements is a button to the top right to FaceTime audio or video. Just click on the contact image now to get into the More Info page. If we go into the photos, it'll now display the contact name on the back arrow here. And in the More Info section of group conversations, everything is neater. People are arranged in a little tab. Now, photos that have a reaction on iOS 15 when opened, you can see the reaction right here. Quick reply button and markup is accessible on the top right. People that are on mute in Messages now have this new bell icon instead of the Do Not Disturb moon. In Messages, haptic touching on a contact gives you a new option to hide in Shared with You. And there's a new interface to add a found contact within Messages. And when you send someone happy birthday, Siri will automatically recognize that and give you a suggestion to add it to the contacts info. There's a lot more fitness stickers now within Messages. Of course, Memojis, Apple added more customization here, 3 colors per outfit. You can change each eye to a different color. There's hearing aids and an oxygen tube. There are also 9 new stickers, which aren't available yet. Now, if you don't want the Shared with You feature present in all apps, you can disable it per contact using the Share Automatically toggle. When sharing location within Messages, there's a new infinity icon for Share Indefinitely. Also within Privacy, there's a new section for Focus, where you can limit the apps, so far just Messages. Okay, so widgets. Quite a few new ones. First off, Sleep, track your sleep, and Game Center, 2 sizes of that one. And Find My, where you can track your devices or people. You got a Contacts widget also, quick access to certain contacts. Also within this widget, you can see requests from kids if they're asking you to purchase something, and you can access that detailed contact view from within this widget. A new Mail widget, which has options for choosing which mailbox. And Calendar now has a jumbo option, 2 of them. And this size here has prettier backgrounds compared to the old one. All of these can be clicked. It can actually show and share more events. You can also customize it to show the old all-day event view from iOS 14. Links to video calls have a join button now with the respective app showing in Calendar. As far as clock widgets, there's a new date time, system time widget with a transparent background. The standard clock has more details now. There's also a new month calendar view with a very simple month overview. There's also a new App Store widget which displays stories, collections, and in-app events. And the Files widget now reliably shows previews for various files, haptic touch, and you can change the location of where it's showing from. And the Battery widget now has new icons for AirPods Pro, which look way better, as well as a detailed one for the casing. And you can edit the Screen Time widget to show a different family member. When editing a Reminders widget, you can see icons in the lists. All of them are showing. And regarding Smart Stack widgets, you'll never see information repeated if you have 2 on the same page on iOS 15, and certain widgets will actually be removed and added to depending on what's going on. And when editing a Smart Stack, there's a completely new interface. And there are buttons down here for Smart Rotate and widget suggestions. Now, FaceTime, of course, has a complete design revamp, from just the opening it up UI to using it with the new grid view. And when you're on mute, you'll get this notification here that you can quickly tap to unmute. In the control center, new setting here for video effects, where you can turn portrait on. And as you can see, there's that portrait video effect where it's blurring my background. And for the first time ever, you can now zoom using the rear camera only. And of course, FaceTime voice isolation and wide spectrum. So 2 features Apple touted where it'll clean up the audio, make it easier to hear. And with spatial audio support, FaceTime has audio improvements all around. And of course, FaceTime is now compatible with PC and Android users via a web link. Now, to create a link or a scheduled FaceTime appointment, just click that button. And there's a custom UI for FaceTime links within Reminders, Calendars, Messages, and just type video call within Snapchat, WhatsApp, really any app, and you'll get a custom FaceTime link invitation. And alongside the FaceTime revamp is SharePlay. SharePlay allows you to share content at the same time, synchronized between many devices. You can share your screen's display, share content like TV shows together, even music. There's even a music queue feature where people can queue up music. It's not quite yet working, but a big one coming to FaceTime. And Safari has been completely redesigned. One of my favorite changes. Now, much more one-handed friendly. The URL bar relocated to the very bottom. To create a new page, just tap for a new URL bar, or just swipe and quickly search with your voice with the new built-in voice icon on the search bar. Now swipe up on the URL bar to enter the expanded tab view. In here, you can access tab groups. Tab groups help you stay organized so you can quickly access large amounts of tabs from various devices. Also within a web page, just a pinch to access the tab view. And an extra fancy way to open a new tab is to swipe up and swipe over. And just like before, you can swipe tabs left to dismiss them. And if you hold the URL bar, there's a new option to add bookmarks for the current tabs. Now you can have a background on the start page by going into edit at the very bottom. So in here you have these custom presets, a rad customization option, and you can change all the other options you see on your start page. In Safari, you can now pull down to refresh the page, as there's no longer a refresh button. And the Safari toolbar, found in this More icon, completely redesigned. Now, much more user-friendly. The controls you'll need more often up top. Now, if you want to quickly duplicate multiple pages, just select 2 pages, drop them on the plus icon, and you'll see that they have been duplicated. A quick way to activate reader mode, just hold on the toolbar button, and that activates. Now, anywhere where you enter text in Safari, if you quickly swipe down, now the keyboard gets dismissed where before it wouldn't. Notice this blend in the navigation bar. So the navigation bar will match the first or top color it sees on a website, and you can disable that in Safari advanced settings. Never use background color in navigation bar. Another cool color detail is the URL bar, when dismissed, will match the color of the background of the current website. When selecting options, the little drop-down menu here is new. Before it was a picker wheel. You can highlight and drag and drop text within Safari. Actually works quite well if you want to save a large chunk of text. And here's an example of the new HTML buttons you'll be seeing throughout Safari. Now they're more blue, definitely more flat. When you click choose a file within Safari, the option menu is different with new icons now. Clicking on links no longer has an animation like that. Now it automatically opens without delay. And just like on desktop, Safari now supports extensions. They'll be built in from your favorite developers. And now content blockers is now known as extensions. Now you'll see all your content blockers in here, and there's a more extensions button down below, which will link you to that section of the App Store. Hide IP address, there's an option to hide it just from trackers only or from websites too. Another privacy upgrade is secure paste. Apple has upgraded this feature where apps no longer have access unless you specifically paste. Now, the default video player in iOS now has new icons for picture-in-picture, expand, and down here there are new controls. So first off, you can change the playback speed to all of these options. Also, the menu to change subtitles and language is all integrated into the bottom right of the player. Now, landscape mode in Safari, it leaves a lot to be desired. In iOS 15, everything's overlapping, buttons look off. And the download interface in Safari is all new. It shows up right here as downloads instead of in the top right. And the overall look is now full screen. And when signing up for something for the first time when using Hide My Email, there is a new splash screen detailing the feature. And your iPhone now has a built-in authenticator. So in passcodes, you can set up a setup key or a QR code. And this is the all-new Apple Pay interface you'll be seeing within Safari. Bolder, a lot easier to discern important information. Now, when autofilling a passcode anywhere within Safari and you click on the little key icon, on iOS 14, you'd get a list of relevant passcodes. That no longer happens. It just takes you to the full list. And you have an option to add a new passcode directly from within here. And with a feature called Passkeys, you'll just use authentication through Face ID or Touch ID and never have to deal with passcodes again. And when looking up words, the lookup interface by default takes up half the screen. And the Weather app, a complete redesign inside, now much more user-friendly. Of course, we've got the beautiful graphics in the background, custom made, all with lighting, dependent on the time of day. For example, the rain animation bouncing off the tiles. Now, this is limited by hardware to iPhone XS and above. And you also have an additional slew of new information here. So from visibility, pressure, rainfall, humidity, a bunch of new tiles. You can also click on air quality to get even more detail on what the current AQIs mean. There are also detailed weather maps. So if you jump in here, you can change those to precipitation maps or air quality maps, just an unprecedented amount of customizability. Now you can also haptic touch within the weather map and add cities or just view that city's weather temporarily. And with the menu on the top right, you can quickly change settings here without needing to scroll to the bottom. And now weather has its own dedicated settings page, and you can enable weather notifications. So from cities of your choosing, you can get notified when weather events happen, such as rain stopping or starting. And weather now has the option to always allow location tracking. And notice how the weather widget has its colors changed. It actually adjusts based on the time and weather, just like the weather app does. On the next hour precipitation view, you can see that it's a bit more refined and easier to see. In music, when clicking on the artist, there's a new pop-up menu with new icons. When haptic touching, play next and play last are now cleanly subdivided from the rest of the quick options. Spatial audio is getting even better with dynamic head tracking, where the sound will track your head as it moves, and that's coming this fall. When transferring music to the original HomePod, there's a new drop-down banner with the album art on the top right. And of course, the Maps app redesign. Now with far more detail, everything looks almost cartoonish, but zoom in and you'll notice an unprecedented amount of detail. And when first starting up, you'll see this looking for traffic mini splash screen pointing to this button here. It's a little car now instead of an eye, and there's new views in here. So satellite, transit, and a new explore map option. Now certain cities get even more detail, where all of the roads and the signs on the roads get detailed out, modeled out. And while navigating in 3D, you can see that it looks somewhat like a puck, the 3D puck. Apple actually built out all the overpasses, and they're all gonna overlap over each other, making navigating much, much easier. And certain cities get these circle waypoints. Waypoints will animate when you click on them with this little bobble animation. There's also a more detailed compass icon, which reflects dark mode correctly. Now zoom all the way out and you'll find this beautiful new globe view, which Apple was very proud of at the event. Many of the landmarks and buildings are modeled out, and they'll actually reflect the sunlight depending on the time of day. And now you can actually tap the text of a city and get an overview of that city, navigation instructions, or you can actually haptic touch on it and get a little pop-up here where previously you would just drop a pin. And on the city overview up top here, you actually have the population, elevation, and square area miles. There are new icons for directions and for flyover here, and a more actions button where pretty much any shortcut, anything you need, quickly actionable here instead of being split all over the place. And certain cities will have new sections for sites, outdoors, surroundings, and other. And using this Wikipedia view, you can get a full screen interface, photos directly within the Maps app, and guides have a new user interface too. And search results are improved, as now you can filter with these buttons for takeout, delivery, or if it's in guides. And there's also a profile icon here where you can get quick access to all of your favorites, guides, reports, ratings, and preferences. And when navigating, you can now click Leaving Now to change the date or time when you leave to get an estimated time of arrival using that filter. And when getting directions, there's a cool new animation where the destination snakes out like that, and actually the longer destination takes longer to snake out. Now when you search for a location and then move the map, it continually updates without needing to click search here on iOS 14. And in general, looking at waypoint info, it's a lot more concise, clean information up top. You have all your good to know stuff up here. Open is now highlighted in green, hours are very prominent. Just all that good to know information is highlighted, split apart, much easier to understand. Now the look around interface, instead of being baked in down here, is now a floating icon which you can quickly access. And in Maps, you'll be able to get step-by-step augmented reality directions. This is a feature not currently added, but looks super cool. And Maps will now show you how long a patch of traffic will take. I also noticed that off-ramps no longer display traffic like they would on iOS 14, keeping things more uncluttered. And I'd say generally while navigating, it was a more pleasant experience. In some areas, there was less information around on the screen, less waypoints, more 3D depth to objects and more discernible. Just in general, seemed like a slightly better experience. The map did update faster. zoom out when needed, just more responsive altogether. Now previously, to enter detailed step-by-step instructions, you had to go into the menu. Now you just tap the banner and it opens. There's also a new interface on the bottom for adding stops, sharing ETA. It's now simpler, ending the route, and when reporting an incident, larger icons, new one for hazard. And after you finish navigating, you get this little prompt asking you if the directions were accurate. And now there are quick buttons for changing the volume on the top right of the navigation interface, and the overview button on the top right gives you quick access to your entire trip, no longer buried in the menu. And while navigating, the quick menu has a new interface. Inside, a larger end button. The Share ETA option has a new interface with inline options. Add a stop also has a new interface. I'm not sure I like the vertical stack look. And Report an Incident has larger icons with a new one for hazard. I also noticed that while navigating in dark mode, you can see that objects, everything easier to see with a little bit of a lighter map. There's also way less information on the side when in dark mode. Now in CarPlay, the Maps navigation UI is darker like it is on iOS 14. On iOS 15 here, it's lighter. I'm not sure I like that. And destination icons, when in dark mode, actually show up as dark. And I noticed that the zoom level by default is more zoomed in on iOS 15, just a little bit at all levels. Also, when getting on a ramp, now iOS 15 will show you ramp status on the bottom. In Maps settings, there's now a new option to disable Rate Your Route to not get that prompt after navigating. I also noticed that while getting directions, the full screen menu can't be pulled down in one go. You have to pull twice. Now when refining a pin, the option Refine Location is now moved and placed up top. And there's a new map setting, Use HFP when available, which basically forces the audio through your car's Bluetooth speakers. And while navigating in landscape, the prompt now goes beyond the screen instead of just floating, so a little bit more free. Now in CarPlay, there's a new selection of wallpapers, and no longer are they subdivided by solid colors. Also within CarPlay settings, a new driving focus mode, which replaces Do Not Disturb while driving, and new Announce Messages settings here with options. And Apple has revamped transit instructions as well. Now you can pin your favorite lines and get directions on your Apple Watch. And in the Photos app, a complete revamp starting with memories. So now memories are upgraded. Apple has introduced the Apple Music library where you can edit memories on the fly, give them different feelings, different tones with different songs. Now you can swipe through photos on the fly. You can hold on one to pause it while the music keeps playing. There's a new Photos overview mode, just like this. In the For You tab, there is a new Shared With You section where all photos people share with you show up here. And in the Shared With You section, there's a little saved checkmark toggle letting you know the image is saved. And the icon of the app from which the photos came is now on the bottom left. And if you open up a shared photo, you see the name, and by tapping on that name button, a quick reply interface. And the toolbar on the top right has a new interface and brings all the options together here. And you can no longer haptic touch on a memory to get a quick preview of it. You actually have to open it up. In quick options, you get the option to feature a memory less, and you can now go so far as to feature a certain person less in suggested photos. And photos now display metadata, so far more information here, including the device that took it, and you can also change the metadata, adjust the location or time it was taken. Now, saved photos will display where they're saved from, including the app icon or web link. So the effects control, before it was down here, you just click Live Now, and you have the options for the same effects. Certain photos have a sparkle next to the eye, and you'll get Siri knowledge based on breeds of cat or locations. There's even a plant identifier, which actually worked very well. Both BlackBerry and Ivy showed up correctly. And when editing photos, new range of icons on the bottom, same function. Now on the top right, there's a markup feature directly within the menu without having to go into here. The markup interface is a little more condensed now. Not sure I like that change. And when editing video in landscape, there's a helpful expand video button. Not that you couldn't zoom before, but this is a quick one. And you can now search by device. Just type in iPhone or iPad, and you can search by which device took that photo. And there's now a new interface for tagging people, especially with multiple people in image. The smaller format makes sense. And the people interface is now rounded rather than squared on iOS 14. And drag and drop in photos is also available, works with large amounts of photos. Now, of course, a large feature in iOS 15 is live text, where you can quickly select text within photos. And by clicking this button within photos, you can get actionable commands such as call a phone number or visit a website like that. And all throughout iOS, you'll have the option to add text from camera, where a cursor field is applicable, and depending on the context, there will be different options for it. Upon opening Find My, there's now a new splash screen detailing new features. A new feature in Find My is separation alerts. Detail which devices can send you alerts when you leave them behind. And even your Apple Watch can send you alerts when you leave your iPhone behind at an unrecognized location. And in the Find My app, devices now have this little new interface which cleanly combines all of them instead of being scattered around, and they all registered as being at home without me having to input an address or anything. And the icon for devices is all new on iOS 15. In Find My, there's no longer an option to receive location updates. This can individually be set per person. Now Find My has live locations where tracking people is always current. It's not on a time-by-time basis. And Find My activation lock now works even after you erase an iPhone, so you can always track a device no matter what. And soon within the Wallet app, you'll be able to add government IDs in participating states, as well as HomeKit key cards. There's also a new Using Apple splash screen after setting up Apple Pay. And in your Apple Card overview, there's now a button on the top right for quickly accessing your card details. And the Wallet app will now automatically archive expired passes here on the bottom. And now when adding a new card, there's a new interface, one which lets you choose which type of card you'd like to add first. And in transit, far more options for different transit locations around the world. And when inputting text on an Apple Watch, you now get this drop down in which you can quickly type to enter text on the Apple Watch. And the Notes app has been rebuilt ground up. There's now a new tags system which allows you to quickly find notes based on tags. And when creating a note, you now have an option to create a smart folder in which you add a hashtag automatically. The checklist icon on the bottom left is now new. And when opening Notes for the first time, a new pop-up urging you to scan a document. And when someone makes a change to a group note, there's now a little dot next to a new icon. Click on that and you can see updates on who changed what. So if I click Show Updates, it'll show me what was changed, and you can swipe to the right and see those changes in detail, who did it and when. And there's a new activity view in which you can get an inline view of the changes and select them to see precisely where. And in the Notes share options, there's a new permission for letting people add other people. And in Notes, using the @ symbol, there's a new mentioning system where you can quickly get someone's attention through a notification. And in Notes settings, new options for print and handwriting feedback. And the attachments page in Notes is refined, everything a little bit more compact. There's a new sound when muting and unmuting during a phone call. And this mini FaceTime interface can be slid down to enter a full screen view in which you can add a person, change the grid layout, and silence join requests. And voicemail transcription is now out of beta, so that beta label is now gone. Now the hidden field test menu is now all new. The information is displayed differently now. You can now hold on the message icon and get options to message within all of these third-party apps for any contacts. And when creating a new shortcut, a new interface completely, categories apps split up into new looks, and the menu for creating a new automation has a new bolder look, and clicking on the toolbar reveals new icons for all the settings. And there's an all new interface and structuring in the gallery tab. Now you can swipe through suggestions, more compact. And when running a new shortcut, there's now an option to allow once. And in the shortcut settings, there's a new advanced tab with new options. And Translate now has a conversation mode where you can go back and forth with someone with two types of interfaces, side by side or face to face. And you also have the option to play translations automatically, auto-translate, and auto-detect language. And there's also a new full screen mode in which you can convey information better. And when translating text anywhere in iOS, the interface takes up half the screen, actually quite nice looking. In the Watch app, Face Gallery UI has been changed, now with a prominent artist section, different watch faces being promoted, and when editing a watch face, now color can be custom selected here instead of having to scroll endlessly. And at WWDC, a new world timer watch face was shown off briefly. Now for the first time in the Files app, you can drag and drop into other apps, and haptic touching on an item reveals a completely changed organization for the quick options. There is a new button on the top right for organization and using groups, and groups are awesome. They allow for organization by time or by file type. Inside a PDF file, you have a quick search button on the top right, and for the first time ever, you can now lock a PDF. Unrecognized files now show a large question mark in the center. In File Search, you can search using this tagging system. There's also a new download interface where you can keep track of downloads, and you can now haptic touch on downloading items and directly interact using this menu. And the Files app now supports NTFS formatting, so you can read the drives, not write to them. In Shortcuts, you now have the option to collapse an entire branch. In your HomeKit camera notification settings, Activity Notifications now replaces Receive Notifications on this iPhone, and now there's an option for Specific Motion is Detected, where you can see that new packages are detected feature. And there's no longer a massive gap beneath the HomeKit camera in Home. And as part of iCloud Plus, HomeKit Secure Video now supports unlimited cameras. Now, if you have the new Audio OS beta for HomePod, you'll see a new timers section below alarms. You'll no longer see suggested scenes in most HomeKit accessory settings. Slightly modified add an accessory interface. Now, instead of a button down here, you have the same option up top. The interface for members of your home is now cleaner, vertical list. In your home settings, doors and locks are now separate categories, and instead of hubs and bridges being separate, it's now its own tab. And now in your user profile in Home, you have the option to enable lossless audio for your HomePods. When you have Listen for Siri disabled on HomePods, you'll now see this little mute icon, both in the settings and on the actual tile. And Apple briefly mentioned Matter. Matter is a big deal because it introduces a new standard for all HomeKit devices. And Apple introduced a new health sharing feature. There's a splash screen detailing the feature. While enabling it, there are suggested topics to share and health alerts. You can choose between many different categories which you want people to see. There's a little summary. You begin sharing. And this is the new health app sharing interface, urgent notifications up top. You also have your trends here. Trends are a new feature added to health in iOS 15, which will show you patterns that last for 28 days, 6 months. And health trends includes notifications. You can manage those from this menu. And you can now share certain health metrics from within the health app. And there's now a new 6-month metric when looking at any data within the health app. And walking steadiness is an all new category that Apple detailed, which helps you understand how you're walking and how to improve. And while setting up walking steadiness, you have the option to set up notifications. They'll alert you with these critical alerts when something is off. Within Mail, junk mail unsubscribe prompt has been redesigned. Apple has also introduced a new privacy protection feature specifically for mail, for pixels, where someone can see if you open the mail or just tracking in general. And there's also a splash screen detailing new Protect Mail activity, and you have the option to opt out and get tracked. And Mail will now reroute downloaded content through multiple proxies for an extra layer of protection. And the App Store is now capable of dynamic events and in-app events with this custom UI. Now, if you already have an app downloaded, you won't be seeing the full screen previews in App Store search. And the Apple Arcade landing page is now swipeable, so new UI and its little bubble for getting started. In the App Store, in featured apps, you can see that there's a download button directly within the featured window. Apple also introduced a new API in which you can request a refund for in-app purchases. In-app ads now feature a little pop-up with a quick link to get the app they're advertising. And within the Tips app, different collections now on iOS 15. While editing a voice memo, there's a new option to skip the silence and enhance recording and change the playback speed. When you have a voice memo selected, the Move button is now a Share button. In News, the following tab, there's a new section titled Shared with You, where all news articles shared with you will show here. Also supports drag and drop of articles, like that. And when haptic touching on an article, you're presented with far less options than you would on iOS 14. And when haptic touching on titles, you have an option to share the channel. If you leave an article unfinished, you'll get this prompt later on urging you to continue reading. In News, both the thumbs down and thumbs up icon are now on the left, and if you activate one, it no longer has this prompt. And within News settings, you have the option to download issues and download audio via automatic downloads. And there's an all new splash screen when opening books for the first time, and a new screen in Apple Podcasts when opening for the first time. And Reminders has a couple new splash screens when opening it up for the first time. And for the first time ever, you can now print your reminder lists. And finally, Apple added a button to clear all finished reminders. And Reminders also has that new tags system. So just like Notes, organize reminders by tags. And when making a new list, you have an option to make it into a smart list. So all these criteria here, date, time, location, flag, and priority. In Calendar, when making a new event, location is now location or video call. So quick shortcut to add a FaceTime link here. When using downtime, the icon indicating downtime is enabled is now yellow. In downtime settings, you have the option to manually turn on downtime until tomorrow. In accessibility settings, a new tab, per app settings, where you can add customizations to any app for any accessibility setting. And in exposure notification settings, there's a new area here for exposure check status. Even when on cellular, iCloud Private Relay is an option. And if you have Private Relay disabled on cellular, it'll warn you that your carrier can track you. And within Private Relay settings, you have the option to use a broader location for your IP address. And within your Wi-Fi settings, you also have the option to disable iCloud Private Relay per Wi-Fi network. While setting up, you no longer get the option for True Tone display. It's just enabled by default now. And that sums it up. My longest video ever. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.